Hi guys, and welcome to this video for Year 12 Business Management. We are still focusing on Unit 3 Outcome 1 here. We are on the second key knowledge point, and in this one we are thinking about business objectives. And it's still early in Unit 3, so it is really an introductory video on the importance of business objectives and specifically some of the business objectives we really need to know for Year 12 Business Management. If we look at our specific key knowledge point straight from the study design, really important to know the ones that they could ask. What do we need to know from this video? What do we mean by a business objective? But we're especially going to focus on the specific business objectives of to make a profit, to increase market share, to fulfill a market and or social need, and to meet shareholder expectations. So we will talk about all of these in this video. What do we mean by a business objective? You'll see this term a lot in Year 12 Business Management. When we talk about an objective in business, we are talking about a statement of desire achievement. It is a goal, or specifically the direction the business wants to achieve. So it is what is the stated goal of the business. The business will have lots of different types of goals, and they are typically to satisfy a financial objectives. Specifically, we're going to talk about some here, making a profit. So how much the business objective might state how much profit they want to make. Remembering profit is all our revenues or sales minus expenses if you're doing accounting. It could be increasing market share. So increasing the percentage of sales that this business has compared to the entire industry. So if a business has 30% market share, 30% of all sales of that good or service is done by that business. And the objective might be to increase that percentage. A one that we might not talk about as much or think about as much instantly, there will be social objectives, and these are becoming more and more important as consumers and customers require and demand this. This might involve meeting a society or environmental need. And that's going above and beyond making a profit. So you might start to see that some of these objectives sometimes might result in a conflict or a trade-off. And then finally, we know that our business owners in companies are shareholders, so about meeting their expectations. So it's important to understand that these all link together. We will have our financial objectives, and you can see it's quite deliberately a bigger cog in the business. Businesses are often major purpose is to create profit and wealth for our shareholders. And you can see that these are some examples of objectives, and we've talked about a few of them: making a profit, growing sales, increasing market share, or increasing productivity, which we'll talk about in future videos. Productivity is about making more outputs with the same amount of inputs. And if you do that, of course, you're going to have more profit or potential more sales. But then we also have social objectives. And you can see it is a smaller cog, but I think it's important to recognize that this is increasingly important and increasingly a bigger part of business. And this might relate to the role of the business in the community. It often involves going beyond the financial objectives. So thinking about how you can give back to society. Maybe it's employing people who aren't represented in that type of industry. It might be promoting programs or creating programs to help disadvantage, those sorts of things. It's about thinking about the environmental damage and impact and trying to limit it. So reducing pollution, reducing waste, using renewable energy, using recyclable materials, and providing community services or contributing to community causes. And these are often linked, but you can see that sometimes they might also involve a trade-off. So for example, doing the action that might result in less environmental damage might be not the cheapest one. So you might say, I'm going to do this to improve the environment, but it's going to impact my objective of making a profit. Now, shareholder expectations is one that we haven't talked about a lot yet. What do our business owners expect? They expect to make the business to make a profit because they're going to get a return on that profit. They want their share value to increase or their return on their investment to increase. And they want dividends to be paid. And we won't talk about too much of this, but dividends are what is given to business owners or shareholders at the end of the year or at half yearly, which often represents their portion of the profit made. So you can see it's quite complicated and businesses will have lots of objectives. And here is a good one to have a guess. And I'm calling this game Business Objective Guess Who. Can you, and I'm going to ask you to just pause the video because I'm going to keep talking. Can you have a guess what these objectives, what business these might represent? So pause the video and have a look. I'm going to keep going. To be the world's best fresh bread retailer, that is actually Baker's Delight. So that was their stated objectives. They would have had lots of objectives underneath it, but their overwhelming one is to be the world's best fresh bread retailer. The second one, to deliver social, economic and environmental benefits to communities throughout Victoria by managing the Victorian arterial road network and its use, is of course Vic Roads. So their stated objectives is to provide a great benefit to the community. The objective, to create awareness and change public perceptions of people who have experienced being a refugee. So this is a social objective of a social enterprise, or even a charity here. This is the Social Studio, and you might want to Google them. They do great work. And to excel at securing and enhance the financial well-being of people, business and objectives, that is your Commonwealth Bank. So all businesses, big and small, should have objectives. These are really high-level ones, but underneath it, they would have had their financial and social objectives as well. So what do we then mean by strategies? I want you to think of strategies and objectives as different. The strategy is the actions that a business is going to take in order to achieve their objectives. So if you think of objectives as the goal or stated target, the strategy is how they're going to achieve it. And by doing this, how are they going to achieve their strategy? By doing lots of different actions. And if they do all of their actions, they will achieve their objectives. So for example, if a business had an objective of increasing its percentage of market share by 10% by 2023, it should have updated that, they could create a number of strategies. And if they did all of these strategies, and I'm going to call these things actions, they might achieve their objective of 10% more market share. So what could be their strategies? They could have a new promotional campaign, so do some advertising. They could look to improve customer service, and they might do some training to do that. And they might try and target new customers, and they might even go globally. And if they ticked off all of those three and did these really effectively, it's likely they would increase their market share and maybe achieve their business objective, in this case, of increasing it by 10%. So what are some of the strategies and objectives of different companies? Companies, remember, are going to be private and or public. It could be Metricon or Woolworths. And their objectives are often ones like this. So profit, increased percentage of market share, increased assets, increased return on for shareholders. If you're a bit unsure about those, ask your teacher or ask me if you're in my class. Government business enterprises. So these are government-owned businesses who are still trying to make a profit. Their objectives are going to be a little bit different. Remember, government business enterprises are often set up to, yes, make a profit, but to serve the community by meeting a need that other businesses aren't. So their objective will often be to provide an essential service, like Australia Post, or communication via the national, or good internet connectivity via the national broadband network. But still, they might want to generate profit because that's going to allow them to keep growing. Social enterprises, these are businesses trying to potentially make a profit. They're privately owned, but they are trying to achieve a social objective. Their objectives are often social and mostly social. Their profit objectives, their profit goals is purely just because if they make profit, they can spend that to meet the social needs. So these are going to be around assisting disadvantaged people, raising awareness, and so forth. So you can see the objectives are going to be tailored for the type of business, and the strategies, hence, to achieve those objectives are going to be different as well. Now, how do we measure whether the strategies, the actions, are going to achieve meaning that the business is on track to achieve their objectives? So remember, we have strategies that involve lots of actions and hopefully will achieve our objectives. Now, as we are doing the objectives, we are still probably a bit unsure whether we are on track. So we need to measure them. And we will measure this performance using what we call key performance indicators. And we're going to talk about these a lot throughout this year. These are specific criteria used to evaluate how effectively and efficiently the business is performing. So for example, if we are wanting to improve customer service, and you might remember that was a specific one in a previous slide, we might have a KPI here to see if this action is on track. And a key KPI could be the number of customer complaints. Because if we have a reduction in customer complaints, a KPI, a measurement, it's probably meaning that we are on track to achieve good customer service. And if we have good customer service, maybe we might achieve our objectives. So you can see each objective here is going to have a KPI. And you can see, for example, if we're going to achieve a social need, we might be looking at level of wastage. And we're not going to talk about this too much now because there is a specific part of this course where we go to this in much greater detail, but it's about being aware of this. And for now, I hope that's where we're going to end. We're still in the introductory phase of Year 12 Business Management, but I hope you've got a good understanding of business objectives, particularly the ones they could ask for: making profit, increasing market share, fulfilling market and social needs and shareholder expectations. And you understand how they link into strategies and KPIs. And for now, that's where we're going to end, and good luck with your studies of business management.